You're tuning in because you need to get up to speed fast on what matters. And right now, that's definitely the cyber incident up at Nova Scotia Power.
Yeah, the utility that covers, what, over 95% of the province? More than 500,000 customers? It's significant.
Exactly. And the first reports, they sounded almost manageable. Servers taken offline, customer portals down, but hey, no physical impact, no ransomware confirmed. Kind of standard IT issue stuff, almost.
Well, almost, but that's often how these things start, isn't it? The initial story can mask something potentially much more serious. Taking critical customer systems offline proactively like that, that suggests they knew something was wrong.
Right. It points towards a potentially active compromise. The real question isn't just about the inconvenience, which is bad enough.
No, it's about the threat that forced them to pull the plug on those systems so quickly.
Because why else would you isolate servers? Unless you think, the problem is active, maybe spreading, like a digital amputation almost.
That's a good analogy, actually. Cutting something off to save the rest. And the My Account portal being down, that's a big deal beyond just paying bills.
Huge. That's the gateway to so much personal data. We're talking names, addresses, account numbers, billing history.
Possibly banking details, even energy usage patterns.
Yeah.
That's sensitive stuff. If someone got access to that.
It moves way beyond just a service outage, doesn't
Yes.
it? It becomes a major data breach issue.
Precisely. Even if, and it's an if, the operational side, the actual power grid controls remained untouched initially, stealing customer data. That's a serious breach of trust. Huge privacy implications.
And then there's that phrase, no ransomware confirmation. Let's unpack that a bit. What could that realistically mean?
Well, it's deliberately ambiguous, right? It could genuinely mean no ransom demand was found, which might point to something stealthier.
Like what? Reconnaissance.
Exactly. Mapping systems, looking for weaknesses, planning maybe a bigger hit later, or it could mean the opposite.
That ransomware was involved, but they're just not saying yet. To avoid panic, maybe? Or manage reputation.
Could be. Neither scenario is particularly comforting, is it? One suggests a patient, sophisticated attacker. The other suggests they're already dealing with a major encryption event and maybe a ransom demand they haven't disclosed.
No, not comforting at all. And then you layer on the statement from EMRA, the parent company, big company, $849 million net income last year,
Yeah.
billions in assets.
Right. And they said this isn't expected to materially affect operations or financial performance.
Which, okay, fine for the shareholders perhaps. But is no impact to earnings really the right yardstick when we're talking about the power grid? Shouldn't public safety be like the main concern here?
That's the fundamental tension, isn't it? Financial metrics versus public safety and national security. If there was unauthorized access, if someone mapped their systems, moved laterally inside their network, the implications go way beyond the balance sheet.
Especially if it was a state-sponsored group. That ramps up the national security angle considerably.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this isn't happening in a vacuum. That timing with the big outage in Spain and Portugal.
Yeah, millions affected there.
Yeah.
Now, no one's confirmed a cyberlink, let's be clear. But the timing, it's unsettling, to say the least, adds to the overall picture.
It does. It fits into this wider, frankly disturbing pattern of cyber incidents hitting the energy sector globally. We've seen major events before.
Oh, yeah. Colonial Pipeline is the obvious one in the U.S.
Yeah.
Ransomware brought fuel distribution grinding to a halt. That was a real wake-up call.
A massive wake-up call about distribution vulnerability. And then Hydro-Quebec, hit by a foreign-linked actor, internal systems knocked offline.
And we keep seeing cybersecurity bulletins, right? Ontario Hydro One, the U.S. Department of Energy,
Yeah.
they're clearly seeing increased threat levels.
They are. And look at Ukraine. Russia using cyber attacks tactically to cause blackouts, to destabilize things. It's part of modern conflict now.
So is it possible Nova Scotia Power is, well, maybe a smaller target? A
Yeah.
place to test things out?
It's a possibility analysts consider. A so-called low-friction test bed. Probe defenses, refine tactics on a slightly smaller stage before maybe going after bigger fish. It sounds cynical, but it's a realistic scenario in cyber warfare planning.
A sobering thought. And it reminds us the grid isn't just poles and wires anymore. It's this complex hybrid.
Cyber-physical, yeah.
Yeah.
Remote management, cloud services, SCADA systems controlling the actual flow, even AI for load forecasting.
Which means tons of potential entry points, right? A much bigger attack surface than the old isolated grids.
Hugely bigger. Every connection, every piece of software, every third-party link is a potential vulnerability someone could try to exploit.
And that brings us back to the official statements.
Yeah.
They often sound very reassuring, maybe too reassuring. Focusing on investors, maybe not the full public risk.
The language is always carefully chosen. No material impact on operations often means no immediate financial catastrophe. It doesn't mean no breach, no compromise, no long-term risk.
Right. Because these aren't just technical attacks, they're psychological too, aren't they? Designed to erode trust.
Definitely. They test reactions, they chip away at public confidence in essential services. If you keep hearing everything's fine while breaches keep happening, what happens when a really big one hits? Public trust could just collapse.
And this surge in attacks isn't just anecdotal. The numbers are really stark.
They are. Reports show like a 30% jump in attacks on critical infrastructure in just 1 year. Energy, transport, telecom, they're the prime targets because they're so interconnected now.
And the ripple effects are scary. An attack on power impacts hospitals, emergency services, government, everything.
Exactly. It's a cascading failure risk. Think
Right.
about healthcare without power. First responders hampered, military bases potentially vulnerable. It's serious stuff.
And the frequency. Reports of weekly attacks on utilities doubling, then doubling again in just a couple of years. That's exponential growth.
It is. The IEA data showed that, and NERC reporting something like 60 new vulnerabilities per day in U.S. power grids. The scale is immense.
So hundreds of billions of attacks globally in a year, 13 attacks per second on critical infrastructure. It's like a constant siege.
A digital siege, yes. And certain countries are repeatedly named as the main sources of these threats.
China, Russia, Iran often come up in intelligence reports. Suggests a strong geopolitical motivation behind a lot of this.
Absolutely. We heard the CEO of E.ON in Europe talking about a cyber attack deluge since the Ukraine invasion began, and that coordinated attack in Denmark, getting into industrial control systems. That's crossing a major line.
So, faced with all this, what are the basics? What do organizations like power companies need to be doing?
Well, there's no magic bullet, obviously, but it's about layers. Multi-layered defense, strong security culture, meaning lots of training for staff, knowing exactly what assets you have.
Basic stuff like multi-factor authentication.
Absolutely crucial. Having solid incident response plans, playbooks, and actually testing them regularly. Drills, simulations, secure, tested backups are vital. And sharing threat intel. You can't fight this alone.
Okay, bringing it back to Nova Scotia Power specifically. We now know it wasn't just systems down. They've confirmed data was stolen.
Yes, that confirmation changes the game significantly. It's now officially a data breach affecting customers directly, personal information stolen.
Which means risks like identity theft, financial fraud, that's now on the table for those affected customers.
It is. They said the unusual activity was spotted last Friday. They've brought in external experts, notified police, standard procedure, but necessary.
And they're promising to contact affected customers with support. Transparency now is key for them.
Utterly key. They need to be clear about what was taken and what support they're offering. And for individuals, it means being extra vigilant, watching accounts closely.
Looking bigger picture again, this whole trend, it seems driven by geopolitics, but also just technology itself, right?
Both, definitely. Geopolitical tensions drive the nation-state stuff, espionage, capability demonstrations, but the tech transformation cloud, IT-OT convergence, IoT devices everywhere, that creates the opportunities, the vulnerabilities.
And ransomware crews see energy as lucrative, while hacktivists use it for political statements.
And nation-states probe for strategic advantage, maybe even sabotage potential. We're seeing attacks targeting everything up to nuclear facilities, which is deeply worrying.
Driven by tensions, but also just demonstrating cyber power.
Often, yes. And then there's AI, you mentioned that earlier. It helps defenders, sure, but it also helps attackers. Lowers the bar for creating malware, finding exploits.
And integrating AI into the grid itself creates new potential weak points, especially in sensitive areas like nuclear.
Correct. It adds another layer of complexity and potential risk. And the dark web chatter reflects all this.
What kind of stuff are we seeing there?
Oh, you see ransomware gangs bragging about hits on energy companies, access brokers selling logins to energy networks from the Middle East to the U.S. to North Africa.
Selling the keys to the kingdom, basically.
Pretty much. You see hacktivist groups dumping stolen data from energy firms, targeting Israeli companies linked to the Gaza conflict, for example, and worrying chatter and some claimed breaches related to nuclear agencies and companies in various countries.
So, actual examples. Ransom Hub hitting Halliburton. Dragon Force targeting ECAV Energy. Access listed for Qatar Gas. U.S. firms. Hacktivists like Z-Pentest, CyberF3ers hitting water and energy. even nuclear targets mentioned.
Yes, reports detail activity related to the Malaysian Nuclear Agency, Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation, Greek firms, even GE and EPRI data potentially leaked or targeted. DDoS attacks on nuclear-related companies in Europe, too.
It really feels like the gloves are coming off. Attackers getting bolder, aiming right for the operational tech, the core controls.
That's the most concerning trend, the shift towards OT targets, because that's where digital attacks can cross over into potentially catastrophic physical consequences. Cyber-physical attacks are the nightmare scenario.
So wrapping this up, the Nova Scotia Power incident, while specific, is really a symptom. A flashing red light for this much larger escalating global issue of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, especially energy.
Exactly. It's not isolated. It's part of a complex web of threats, financial, geopolitical, hacktivist. And the consequences aren't just digital. They're potentially physical, impacting safety, security, everything. The confirmed data theft adds that immediate personal harm dimension too.
It forces us to really confront how vulnerable these interconnected systems are. Understanding the threat is just step one.
It is. Recognizing the weaknesses, the potential impact, that's crucial before we can really build the resilience we need.
Absolutely. And this deep dive was brought to you by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. If you are looking for secure, truly ransomware-proof storage, Stonefly offers air-gapped and immutable options. You can contact sales at stonefly.com to schedule a demo.
Good solutions are definitely part of the answer.
They are. So as we process this, the escalating global cyber activity, the confirmed data breach at Nova Scotia Power, it leaves us with a pretty stark thought, doesn't it? What other unseen vulnerabilities are lurking in the systems we depend on every single day? And maybe more importantly, what proactive systemic changes do we need to demand and implement to genuinely secure them before a truly widespread crisis hits?